Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show. You know, for those of you who are new to the show, go check out our archives because we got so many great past episodes with CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs from Netflix to Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree, OpenTable, many more. I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And I'm excited for today's guest. But first, I want to give a shout out to Calvin Johnson of Culture Kitchen. Go check him out at workplacehappiness.com because he introduced us to today's guest, whose name is Dominic Rubino. He's a business coach, an entrepreneur, and a podcaster. He's built and sold two companies. Check this out. CanadaPharmacy, which he built up to $120 million a year in annual revenue, then sold it. And also FocalPoint Business Coaching, which was in partnership with the business guru, speaker, thought leader, author, Brian Tracy, who's got tremendous respect. I've read his books. Great guy. Dominic was the global master franchisor, took that from 6 franchisees to 237 in the lifetime of that. Now he's the host of 2 podcasts for the construction industry, Profit Tool Belt podcast and Cabinet Maker Profit System. So we'll talk about those as well. And even his first business, going back to Yo Ho Ho Light Company, it's got to be the best name for any business that's ever been on this show in 12 years. It's a Christmas light installation company. So we'll talk about that. Of course, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25 Media, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. Go to rise25media.com to learn all about that. Dominic, such a pleasure to have you here. And let's start with Yo Ho Ho Light Co. What is that?
Well, let's start with, that was the best intro I've ever had.
Thank you, sir. I want to hear about it. I want to hear about this company.
You want to hear about the Yo Ho Ho Light Co?
I got to start there. How can we start anywhere else? How did that come about? You were a student? You were in college? You were in high school? You were 12 years old? What were you doing?
Yeah, high school student. And I sat down and I thought, what can I do that other people don't want to do that they'll pay me for? And I had a Toyota pickup truck. But you have to remember the Toyota pickup truck. It was like from the...
they were tiny back then.
Oh, they were tiny. Oh, how come I'm drawing a blank? Back to the Future. Remember?
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Pickup truck he had?
Biff drove one maybe?
Not
Marty
Biff.
had one?
Marty had one.
Okay,
Marty McFly had that Toyota pickup truck with the roll bar in the back.
Yeah, these days they're massive. Back then
they're huge.
Were like tiny.
It was a little tiny, but I had that. That was my truck. And
so it could hold one string of lights basically and a step ladder.
A ladder. I borrowed my ladder from my dad. I still have the ladder. I haven't given it back to him. But I just sat there and I thought, everybody talks about doing stuff. I'm going to do something. So I started the company. I thought I'd give it a funny name. I actually started it with a buddy of mine. We're still great friends these many years later. And I came up with the name, the Yo Ho Ho Light Co.
So you're out in the cold in Canada, getting up on a step ladder in December, freezing your butt off.
On cedar shake roofs with a staple gun in my hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like something most parents try and talk their kids out of. How old were you when you were doing that?
Well, whatever grade you are in grade 12. How old are you in grade 12? 16, 17, 18? I don't know.
And looking back now, were you kind of like a entrepreneurial type from a young age, or was that, how did that come about?
I don't think I knew the word back then. I had an uncle. I've had a couple of uncles who were in business. One of them owns a retail store, specialty retail store. And then another one's a framer, like a construction framing. And I always looked up to them and I thought it was so cool. They had this thing called a business and they were a business owner. But at that age, I don't know. I knew I was not going to be a great employee. I needed to carve my own path, but no idea what it was going to be.
Did you have jobs in addition to Yo Ho Ho?
Oh yeah. I was a lifeguard at the same time, and I also was a bartender.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so something lit a fire under you. Was that a good experience having the light company?
Fantastic experience. You know what I did is I cold called. Nobody taught me how to cold call. I was cheap, right? I was trying to save money. So on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, I mocked up my own flyers. And then I cut them in 4 on the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And I just took them door to door. And I can't say it was the first house that I went to, but I knocked on the door of this house and I said, hey, my name's Dominic. I install Christmas lights. I'm just a kid, right? And the guy that comes to the door quickly comes outside, closes the door behind him. And he's like, my family's bugging me to install lights. Can you do it? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, how much for my house? And I wasn't prepared. I said, $200. Worst mistake of my life. But what I did do is I said to that guy, I'll do your house for $200 a year for as long as I'm running this business. And he became the greatest client. And I don't know if you remember this, John, but he was a ginseng farmer. So not where his house was, but he owned some farms that produced ginseng when they were still producing that up here.
Okay. So you're knocking on doors in the right neighborhood, it sounds like, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I went to I walked from my neighborhood to a better neighborhood.
Okay. Well, that's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And $200, was that profitable or was that you?
No.
Okay.
John, at the end of the first year, when I did the math, like very rough math, I made $26 or $23. I didn't make money, but I did get the bug. I did, I knew I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to be in business. I just didn't know what it was going to be.
Now you had other businesses after that as well. So talk about some of the other ones before you got to CanadaPharmacy.
Yeah. Well, I craved learning. So, I mean, if you're ready for a good laugh, I did go to university, but I'm an archaeologist. I have an arts degree with a specialization in forensic anthropology.
No, so natural training for entrepreneurship.
That didn't take it all.
Well, I have a BA in English, so I'm not much better or worse.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Podcasters. Who would have thought, right?
Right. So what was the next business?
The next business was a painting company. And it was actually, I didn't know it was a franchise at the time, but I became a part of AAA student painters, which is like College Pro. I think every city's got them, some sort of university painter type thing. And I joined there. They really taught me how to sell. They taught me how to manage projects. It was absolutely the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, business-wise. It was soul crushing and hard, just beyond hard.
Is this the same student painting company that Cameron Harold was involved in as well?
I think so. Yeah, I know Cameron because we're in the same city. Now, he was College Pro. I was AAA student painters, TASP, but it's this just different colored vans. Same thing. Yeah. It was really, really incredibly hard, but that was trial by fire. And I learned a lot of things there. Yeah.
And then, so tell me how you get to CanadaPharmacy. How did that come about?
Oh, so, I left university and I became a realtor. Didn't like that. And as a matter of fact, I was doing a listing presentation at a house and I didn't know that the guy was a recruiter. And so right there at his kitchen table, while I'm trying to get him to list his house, he recruits me to work for Sprint Canada. So I became a salesperson at Sprint. That job, I don't think even exists anymore. I was selling long distance services and now that doesn't exist. But, I was the blue suit, red tie, power tie. They taught us really well there. And there was a lot of discipline in following the sales process. So I did that. And then I got a promotion to the Prairie region, which is everything north of North Dakota, but in Canada, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta. And then while I was there, I started selling used junk on eBay. Of all things. And I sold used calculators.
Just to make a little buck on the side kind of thing?
Yeah. And for fun, like to keep my mind going.
Yeah.
Do you remember ColecoVision head-to-head football games? You're too young for that?
No, possibly. What was it? Was it
It's a handheld video game with little LED lights in it. And it was a Coleco. It was Coleco or handheld games. Anything with LED is collectible or was collectible. LED calculators, LED games. So I started selling those. Then I became partners with my cousin because we were both at the time living in Alberta. He was in Red Deer, I was in Calgary. And we started selling this stuff on eBay. And that was going well, but that is really when I got frustrated with business because we were doing okay, but not good enough to stay open and not badly enough to close. And so that's when I started looking for more business training. And I became a franchisee of a business coaching thing that I found based out of Australia. And I learned to be a business coach.
So you're selling during the day, you're selling products on eBay, and you're also doing business coaching.
Yeah. So at this point, I'd left corporate. I went over to this franchise company out of Australia and I learned to be a business coach. And then I did really well as a business coach. And I think a big part of that reason is when I was at Sprint, I was running the agency program for the Prairie region, which meant I had to fly into far northern communities and go to the local competitive phone companies, not the main phone companies, but the competitors, the people that sold handsets. And I had to sell Sprint's business case to them so that they would then sell it to their clients. And so I became kind of like a sales manager and sales trainer, just roving the provinces, teaching and coaching them. And so I kind of learned coaching there. And then when I became a business coach, I did really well.
Now, one of the challenges that business coaches experience is just longevity of clients and creating that kind of stickiness. How did you overcome that so that you didn't have high client churn?
I've had clients for as little as a week, and I've had clients for, I think my longest existing client now is 9 years, and then 7 years, and I've got a bunch in the 5-year range. You just have to add value. As long as I'm adding value, I'll keep the client. But if I'm no longer adding value, I've got to go. And if the client's no longer doing the work, they've got to go.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Now, okay. So we've got a straight, clear path here from Christmas light installation to painting company to sales for the phone company to tell me if I miss anything, to business coaching to online pharmacy. Of course, naturally.
Yeah, no, there's no straight line there. So let me take you back into the eBay company. So the eBay company's doing okay. I become a business coach, and that's where I learn how to turn around a company while it's still running. And so I apply that to my own little eBay business. And I still remember the gas station. It's in Surrey. It's one of those combination coffee shop and gas stations. And I sat at the little stand-up table and like, we are either going to sell books, we're going to sell records or magazines, because I needed something consistent, easy to describe, easy to ship with high, people needed to want it. Yeah. And so I decided on books. And then I do this all the time, John. I forgot to do the math. I did the math that said, at sale price X, we need 250,000 books in inventory. No problem. But I forgot to do the volume calculation on how much space 250,000 books would take. But I changed the nature of our business from selling junk to selling books. Selling books, there's a couple of convolutions there, but I'm not going to bore you. And then we started selling over-the-counter medications from Canada to the States, and that became CanadaPharmacy. So that company started as an Excel spreadsheet. And then when I sold it, it was 120 million in sales. Wow.
And, in the United States, obviously the healthcare system is a complete mess.
Different.
Different. That's one way of putting it. Prescription drugs as well. But you said it was all over the counter. Did you eventually sell prescription as well?
So we started with over the counter, but here in Canada, you're not allowed to have a pharmacy unless you have a pharmacist on the board. And so we then, when we got to a certain size, we brought a pharmacist in and had them as part of the ownership group, which, by the way, I don't mind saying this, and any pharmacists out there listening can call me later, was a disaster, because pharmacists are not business people, but they thought they were fantastic business people. That caused all sorts of strain. But
did you give this person like they had some equity in the company also?
Yeah, they had equity. They had a say at the table, but their say was largely based on their own ego and feelings of the day, not really sound business decisions.
So however, this goes towards how you select your business partners. So in retrospect, what advice do you have for others about selection of business partners?
I'm on the spot here, John. Don't have a business partner.
Don't have one. Maybe that's the advice.
I mean, here's my advice from having 2 businesses with business partners is that it's almost impossible to find that alignment between people. And knowing what I know now, I'd rather go raise more money and pay a VP very, very well and work them just as hard as I do, but they're not going to be an owner with me. I'm done with business partners. No more.
So as far as back to CanadaPharmacy, so you start this about 1999, I believe it was. That's pretty.
It's about 99, 2000. Yeah.
I mean, in the evolution of the internet, very early days for e-commerce.
Was it ever early?
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy early.
What are some of the learnings along the way from growing that company over the 6 years that you had it before you sold it?
The one thing that I remember the most about that business is we came in every day and had to reinvent the business or be prepared for it to fall apart. I can remember just the supply of medications, and we were a legitimate pharmacy. We had pharmacists. So not only did I had a call center of 120 staff, I had a shipping and packing center of 40 pharmacists and pharmacy technicians. So these are all very educated people in there. The difficulty is buying product and then reselling it to the States. And so there was a real fear and uncertainty campaign coming out of the US that Canadian medications weren't safe. Well, we're all humans. We all have the same blood. But, so just be careful. Your competition in this case was the American government. So they were really trying to stop us. And do you want a real mind-blowing story?
Sure.
Condoleezza Rice came to visit Vancouver, where I live, for a surprise visit. And about 2 days later, my life went down the toilet.
What happened?
Well, our call center was in an industrial area.
So she's Secretary of State at the time?
She's Secretary of State at the time. We'd been running the company for maybe 2 years.
Okay.
And we're doing well, and we're selling a lot of product. So our offices were in industrial warehouses. They're called tilt-up warehouses. They're just row warehouses that you would see in any city, in any town. So our staff, we had 160 staff. So they're parking all over the streets. Well, Condoleezza Rice comes to town. Seems like no big deal, right? Suddenly we're getting parking tickets. The fire department is doing surprise inspections on us. Our landlord, who is an independent guy, suddenly goes, I have to come and check. Apparently you're using too much water. We're like, what? Well, he came into our shop all the time because we had soda for 25 cents. So he'd come in anytime he was working. And I'm like, why are you, this seems weird. It's a formal visit. He goes, yeah, I got a call. I have to come and do an inspection. And what happened, they put our name in the middle of a big piece of paper and said, make their lives, you know what? And so we started getting.
Was there someone that eventually? Everywhere. Was there someone with the provincial government or city government that told you this?
No, I could. How do you go from getting parking tickets to water usage to an independent, like a private landlord coming in, to the city coming by for surprise inspections, to all sorts of things? And then we got a call from Visa, our credit card processing company, and they said, well, we suspect there's some crazy activity going on. So come on in. So they sent an ex-RCMP officer to tour the facility, and he tours with me, and he's like, this is all legit. I'm like, yeah, it's like, we just are who we are. We're just doing what we're doing. And so we got the okay. So eventually we got the okay from everything. But for a while there, it was a hot burning mess.
Wow. So lesson there, difficult to go up against something as large as the U.S. government, I guess, if they're fighting you.
So there was a lot of risk in that business. So it we can't get into the valuation, but it affected the valuation. That kind of high level risk was literally at a day by day level. Are we open tomorrow? Are we not?
So did you sell it at a time when you still were experiencing this uncertainty, or was it a couple of years later?
I sold it when I got my number. I set a number in my mind, and then I walked into my partners and said, hey guys, I think it's time for me to go. There was no discussion. It was no argument. I mean, I think we were all ready to go. And, the takeaway message from that is values are values. And our values were so different.
You and your partners.
Yeah. And they have their values, which they believe in and obviously are good for them. And I have my values, which I believe in and are good for me. We just had different values, and it was a good time for us to split. Was there a part of you though that was challenged by that? Because I mean, that's a phenomenal result by any means. There must have been a part of you that was like, geez, 6 years we've gone from, nothing to 120 million in revenue. That's just phenomenal. There must have been a part of you that was thinking like, God, how can I leave this? Yeah. Absolutely. It's easy to look back on right now, John, and say with some, as if I'm this big philosopher, oh, well, I recognize that I have to do this and that. But my life was going down the toilet. I lost the age of 36. It was just a black hole, a lot of stress, a lot of craziness,
a lot of hours.
The hours were bad. And also just when I say values, I'd walk into the call center one day and there's 120 people in there. There's some new person sitting at my desk. And I'm like, hi. She goes, oh, so-and-so just hired me. I'm here to start today. I'm like, well, who are you? Well, I'm a cousin of this other person. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with that? We don't have a training starting in 2 weeks. And she goes, no, he said I can start today. So I'll start today. I'm like, what is going on here? So just some real bonkers stuff going on.
Kind of lack of alignment as far as management strategy and hiring processes and things like that. Yeah.
You cannot polish a brick. And I'm done. I don't need to polish a brick. So that brick can go polish himself.
How much later? So it wasn't too much later that you end up acquiring the master business franchise for FocalPoint Business Coaching, which was an extension of Brian Tracy, right?
That's right.
Okay. So how did that come about?
God, So remember, most of this time I've been a business coach. My original franchise term had lapsed from the Australian-based business coaching company, so I wasn't part of anything there. And then I had sold the pharmacy, so I was kind of I call it untethered. I was untethered. And if you talk to Calvin, make sure he doesn't take that book title because I'm writing it one day. Untethered. Because what do you call it when guys like us sell our companies?
Untethered.
Yeah, we're not unemployed, right? We're untethered.
Hmm.
So I went to buy a local coffee shop and I got slapped in the face with that one. I did it wrong. And then I called a friend of mine and he goes, well, interesting. Brian Tracy's just approached me. Do you want to come with me and buy the global franchising rights? And so we did.
Wait, hold on. Before we get to the Brian Tracy story, what went wrong with the business, the coffee shop?
You know what? I thought I knew what I was doing, but I went to buy the coffee shop and without doing my proper due diligence, I gave them a price and I didn't realize that I had just struck. They already had another deal on the table. And all I did was reinforce that the other deal was, good or something like that. And I just never heard from them again.
Oh, so they just went off and took that other deal.
They went off and took the other deal, and which is fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be running a chain of coffee shops.
Yeah. Why? I'm curious. Did you like coffee? Why did you want to go from online pharmacy to coffee?
Well, I love recurring revenue businesses. I look for businesses that have repeatable, recurring revenue. I also love coffee. And this is the kind of coffee shop that if it was across the street from Starbucks, they would have a line and Starbucks would be empty. So it was a high-end, high-value, really nice coffee shop. And they still are today. And the right owner bought it. It wasn't me. So I'm good. That probably would have ruined the opportunity.
Got it. So you end up going and acquiring the master business franchise for Brian Tracy's FocalPoint Business Coaching. How did that come about?
Well, like I said, somebody that I had met in the original Australian-based franchise, we'd stayed in touch, and he said, "Hey, Brian wants to sell the rights to this. Do you want to come in with me?" And so that just happened. Like, it made all sorts of sense. The reason that it made sense for me to buy the global rights to the franchise is because I already understood business coaching, and I had been a trainer at the Australian company. So there were only 7 of us in the world that were asked to be on the international training team from the Australian franchise, right? And just not to over clarify it, but I was a business coach and I trained other incoming business coaches. So I knew how to train business coaches. I knew how to get clients. I knew how to get clients. And that's what you need to run a coaching business. But then I let that go, kept running the pharmacy, and then this opportunity popped up. And so I joined my partner to build the FocalPoint brand for Brian. And that worked just lickety split, worked great. We went in there, we started increasing sales, training the franchisees better to be business coaches. And then slowly over time, we grew. There were lots of challenges, but we grew.
So it seems like a lot of that focus then was on adding more franchisees. So it's kind of like you're selling, but you're selling to other franchisees or other businesses or other business coaches to come in as a franchisee for you.
Yeah. So if you separate the business into 2 parts, I took over operations and my partner took over front office operations, if you will. So I was responsible for global coaching, quality, and delivery. So all of the new franchisees that came in, my team or I would train them and support them as they started their coaching business. My partner took care of the marketing and sales to find the new franchisees. And I used to joke, our franchisees were all ex-presidents and CEOs. And so one of the hard parts of our business is Friday night, Saturday night is when all of our business coaches who are ex-presidents and ex-CEOs are sitting down with a glass of wine going, you know what FocalPoint could be doing better? I'm going to email Dom. And then I'd get this list from a guy who's a president just like me, who's a CEO just like me, saying, here's what you're doing wrong. Here's what we need to do to fix it. So it was a very smart organization, really smart people, like incredibly wise, smart.
Oh, so these are your franchisees.
Yeah, but they've all come from corporate.
Got it. So they all want to improve internally processing and everything, right?
Which is really, it's the worst of all best problems. Like there's no complaining.
On the one hand, it's good. You've got a lot of internal knowledge that can help improve things. On the other hand, it's like, okay, guys, come on.
Give me 10 days to implement this thing. So, but to a person, excellent people in that franchise, excellent people, well vetted, well trained, well supported.
Right. Now, you end up exiting that business, and you you decide, how did you end up getting into starting a podcast focused on cabinet makers? Again, another like different direction.
Yeah. So I think I build businesses different than other people do. I look really at what the makeup is that I want, and then I build bottom up, right? So my other option, if the internet didn't exist, I'd be a touring public speaker, because I'm quite a good public speaker. I'm confident up there. I could deliver a message in really easy, manageable chunks. I'm not shy about it, blah, blah, blah. But I don't want to travel. I am done traveling. I spent my whole business life traveling, and I don't want to do that anymore. So that took traveling out, but I'm still good at speaking and training and all of those things. And then I went back and I just looked at my most enjoyable business coaching experiences. And it actually happened to be one of my very first clients made pool tables. And we were, of all things, another guy made caskets, like caskets.
Yeah.
Coffins.
For dead people. Yeah.
For dead people.
Yeah.
But it's woodwork, right? For these guys.
Yeah.
So those were two of my early clients, and they were great people. And so the construction trades, plus I grew up at a construction trades dinner table. That kind of language is just how we talk when my family gets, we're Italian. It's not even stereotyping. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So it's just my people, my language. It's easy for me. I don't like using complicated words. Like, I don't like consultant speak. I'd rather just speak like I do now. And so it just fit.
And so you decide to start coaching cabinet makers. I mean, how did you decide in that particular niche, or did it evolve?
A funny story. I was speaking locally because I didn't have to travel for that. I mean, I don't count driving in my car to the other end of town.
Yeah.
And I was speaking for it's called an architectural woodwork association. So there's cabinet makers, and then above that is this class of woodworkers that make entire courtrooms or beautiful judges' offices or the lobby of a hotel you'd see in Vegas, all out of wood, just incredible stuff. So I was speaking at one of their association meetings, and they said, "Hey, can we record it? Because some guys can't make it today." And so that got posted, and then another. And I thought, well, I'll do an interview to follow up. And before you know it, it was a podcast.
No, that's cool. At what point did you get involved in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, which we are both members of?
Yeah. You're going to laugh. I was in EO when it was called the Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs. I was at Simon Fraser University. And so it was just the student version of EO. It was like their feeder group that I think would now be called Accelerator. So even though Accelerators pushed up, we were pushed down.
Wow. So was this when was this? What years?
I'll tell you, 87.
It sounded 1987, I think, is around the time that started.
Yeah. So in the room with me, Jade Burrell from Higher Desk, Brian Scudamore from 1-800-GOT-JUNK, You Move Me, 1-800, like all that stuff.
Yep.
But we're all a bunch of pimple-faced kids drinking coffee out of those styrofoam cups.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. It was so long ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what was it like then in the early days of when you were a member of it?
I don't remember. I really craved that info, and I craved being in that kind of group of people, what I now come to call forward-facing business owners, people who are running a business, but not just stuck in the day-to-day. They're standing up, shoulders back, and they're like, there's a challenge coming. Let's go get it. Instead of like, there's a challenge coming. Brace yourself. There's a difference in that. And I've always really liked that kind of crowd. And as you know, from being in EO, what an incredibly creative group of forward-facing business owners. So I just like that. It's hard to find anywhere else.
For sure. What are you most excited about? We're recording this in February 2022. What are you most excited about as we hopefully are coming out of 2 years of pandemic?
Yeah.
You got your couple of different businesses now.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to use words that are, so common right now, but I'm scaling this business and I'm growing it. I've got my strategic plan in place, as you would expect me to have. And I'm going to use that strategic plan and what I've got in this business to grow it to the point where I'm building a nice business that delivers a lot of value to people, that has recurring revenue, and that I can cash flow for my own personal sake, because I need to do well as well.
Yeah, that's great. All right, Dominic, I love asking this question. So, I'm a big fan of gratitude. I'm a big fan of expressing gratitude, especially to peers and contemporaries. People maybe in your community or beyond that you respect and admire. So who out there would you want to acknowledge publicly?
Well, I mean, I think we have to acknowledge Calvin because he introduced us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Italian, and so my family's a massive part of my success and of my failures too. Like they're always there. They're always there, and that defines where I live, where my family is. It almost sounds trite, but my parents, my grandparents, all that stuff is fantastic. But I look around, and when I'm up against a wall, I'll call a guy. He's actually used to be one of my franchisees. His name is Greg DeSimone. He's in Boston. Very, very good guy, wise, contemplative. I've got some other people I rely on. There's Mark Billard, Martin Hunter, Marty Park. Just those are the people I rely on when I've got a tough question that I don't want to ask just anybody.
Dominic, where can people go to learn more about you?
If you can't find me on the internet, you ain't looking. So that's the thing. But the website is Profit Tool Belt. My name, as you said, is Dominic Rubino. You can catch me on LinkedIn. Heaven knows people I don't even know try to reach me on LinkedIn all the time from countries I have never visited yet. And then if you happen to be in cabinetry or the finished wood trades, as I know many EO members are actually, you can go to Cabinet Maker Profit System. Lots of ways to find me.
Excellent. All right, Dominic, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.